Welcome back to the Bandwich Tapes. I'm Brad Williams. Today's guest is bassist Chris Tordini, and this is a conversation about the kind of musicianship that doesn't always shout, but always matters. Chris is someone who's built a career by listening deeply, serving the music, and knowing when to lead and when to stay out of the way. We talk about his current Broadway gig with Hadestown, what stability means for a working musician, and how that fits alongside a life spent collaborating with composers and bands across New York's creative music scene. We also dig into his long musical history with Becca Stevens, singing and playing bass at the same time, and the subtle but crucial relationship between bass and drums. This is a thoughtful, inside the music conversation about trust, time feel, and building something lasting. Here's my conversation with Chris Tordini.
I wanna leave you time, plenty of space so that I'm still the muse when you write. I wanna take it easy on the inner child, break out and bite the hand holds me down, and take my cues from the horse's mouth. I wanna hold every moment in my own hands, feel every breath that I've taken, love you the way that I know I can. But it's impossible.
Chris, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Thank you very much. I'm doing all right. How are you? I mean, I know you're not. I know you're a little under the weather, but
Yeah, I'm a little under the weather, but it's okay. I've been so looking forward to this that I was like, it's all right. I'm going to power through it. So yeah, just feeling a little bit under the weather, but it's okay.
yeah.
How is your 2026 so far? Have you been playing a lot?
I have. I've been playing. I've been playing a decent amount these days. I'm almost always playing a lot because I actually have basically a full-time Broadway gig at the moment.
Oh, cool.
This is a show called Hadestown. It's been running for a while. And I took over the chair back in April. So I'm either at Hadestown or I have a lot of leeway to take some time off to do other things as well. So if I'm not at Hadestown, I've been doing other performance and recording stuff. So I've been pretty busy lately.
That's nice. I imagine having that steady schedule with that gig has to be kind of nice.
It is. It is. It's a level of sort of stability and predictability that I have not experienced since I've been, since I've been a professional musician, which is basically since I graduated college. I've never had like a job or anything approaching a job like that before. So it's interesting. It's a whole new experience for me.
Yeah, that's great. What is the weekly schedule on that gig?
So there's basically always 8 shows a week. And there's 2 shows on Wednesdays and 2 shows on Saturdays. And Mondays there's no show on Mondays usually. That schedule changes depending on like holidays and stuff, but that's the basic schedule.
Wow, that's great. And you get to have a day off. So if you want to take a gig, you can, or if you want to just catch up on administrative stuff, you can. That's really fantastic.
Yeah, I've been trying to when I can. I've been trying to take more shows off just to hang out with my family, with my daughter, because since I've been out so much at night, I've hardly gotten to see her except for in the mornings when I take her to school and stuff.
Yeah. Having children of my own, I certainly understand that piece of it. The nature of the job is that you're typically gone in the evenings, and that's when so much of that quality time can be had with family. So I understand how tough that can be.
Hmm.
Yeah. Are you doing upright and electric on that gig, or what is your instrumentation?
That Hadestown is just on upright, actually.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
That's fun.
yeah, it's a really fun show. I mean, I can't really. I'm not like I've never been in the Broadway world before. Um, this came about through sort of just people that I know, um, and I can't really picture another show that I would really enjoy playing over and over again. It can be, even with a show that I like, it can be hard, but
Yeah.
it's a really fun show.
That's great. Yeah, I have a good friend that I've played a lot with over the years. He lives in Atlanta now, but he lived in the city for years, and his primary gig was that he was like a first call sub, and at one point he was playing like 4 or 5 shows. I mean, he would walk in and, when players like yourself, he was a drummer, percussionist, but
Hmm.
when someone would take a day off, he'd go in and just sit down and do it. And he loved that variety of getting to play several shows instead of, playing one. Now, if the one gig came up and he could have done it, he probably would have been okay with that too. But
Sure.
he did enjoy the variety of it.
Yeah, I mean that is yeah, I understand that actually. I've given some thought to whether or not I actually prefer my life before or because I used to sub on Hadestown before I got the chair. And I've been thinking like, oh, was it better before or now? And the answer is kind of undefinable because there's good parts to both. But one of the things I liked about subbing was I would do a lot of shows, but then I wasn't like beholden to the chair. I could just do, I could accept any other gig I wanted, and I would do Hades Town when I was available. But now there's this big responsibility, which is good on some levels, but like I haven't turned down a ton of like create whatever you would want to call it, quote unquote, other stuff that I do like creative work because of Hadestown, but I have had to say no to some things because I need to be around more for that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes complete sense. And I imagine looking at your list of credits and the groups you played with and the things I've seen that you've done so far in your career, I get the impression that you enjoy having a varied schedule. I think you like to collaborate with a lot of different ensembles. Is that a fair assessment?
For sure. Yeah, I mean I really love um being a side person in the scene that I'm in or the various scenes that I'm in and like playing with a bunch of different people who are, at this point a lot of them are very close friends of mine and helping, uh, helping bring their music to life in whatever way. And yeah, I like new challenges. I like playing new music. I mean, I do like consistency though. Like I like to work with the same people. Like I work with the people I play with now. I've been like a lot of them I've been playing with for a really long time. That I've developed like personal and professional relationships with. I like to have that kind of like grounding and foundation with like the group of people I play with. But then, yeah, any other stuff that comes along too. Like, yeah, I like to do a lot of different things.
Yeah. What has being a working musician in New York specifically, what do you think it's taught you as a musician that you may not have been able to learn in any other city?
Mm, that's a bit of a hard question to answer because honestly, I have only ever lived here since I left home. But I mean, I've gathered that through talking to people from different cities around the world that I mean, New York certainly has a reputation for like when you want to live here and work as a musician, there are certain things people expect of you in terms of like hiring you, like your ability to. Sometimes it's like sight reading. Sometimes it's just being a good reader in general. It doesn't have to be like on the spot sight reading. You definitely have to be comfortable with you have to have an open mind for sure. Like you have to be comfortable with like maybe it's odd rhythms or maybe it's unusual tonalities or whatever. Like, I mean, that's also just the people that I tend to play with. Like, there's a whole other, there's many scenes in New York, and like you could ask that same question to someone else that plays like in the more straight ahead scene, and they would say, oh well, the thing that you need to have in New York is like you need to know like 2,000 tunes or whatever,
Right.
which is not so relevant to my experience. But yeah, there's so many different scenes here, and they all have their different things that people would expect of you. I don't know if that answers your question very well.
No, it absolutely does. I mean, I think every city, whether, I played in Atlanta for many years, and LA, Houston, Chicago, I think every city kind of has its own scene. I think New York is probably a little bit more unique than others in that I would imagine each of their scenes, the straight ahead or anything, is probably each one of them is as big as some other city's entire music scene, right? There's so many players doing so many things there.
Yeah, that's
And
probably true.
I would imagine that it's just, yeah, it has to be demanding in every way. I mean, I just think about you as an upright player, like getting from where you live to a gig. I just think about just the practical pieces of it have to be challenging at times.
Yeah, that is true. And especially as I get, a little bit on in my years, when I was a younger man, I would have no problem at all lugging at least just my upright bass on the subway all over town. Sometimes also with an electric bass on my back or something like that, some other stuff. But these days, that's not so great for me anymore. I mean, I still take my upright on the subway, um, but I would not do like a double lug on the subway anymore. I don't think. But I do have a car now, so my life, as I've gotten older, my life circumstances have, I've evolved to a place where I make things easier on myself a little bit, like with having a car and trying to take it easy. I also, for my Broadway gig, I have a bass at the theater that I just keep there, and which makes that gig much more convenient.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've spent many years as a bass player too, and it's amazing. At least for me, as my age got higher, my rig got smaller and smaller. I tend to
Yeah.
try to take less and less as my age increased.
Oh yeah.
So I was curious about, I guess, how it all started for you. What drew you to the bass, and was that the first musical instrument that you played?
It was definitely not the first that I played. I grew up first. I grew up singing in choirs, like in church.
Hmm.
So I guess singing was like the first thing for me. And then when I was about 8, I took piano lessons for a couple of years, which at the time I was not too crazy about, but turned out to be hugely important and influential for me for later on in my life. Because even though I was like not super into practicing and I wasn't like in love with the piano or anything, it really sort of like, all the language and the notes and everything sort of sunk into my brain on some level, which I realized later when I started teaching myself guitar when I was in middle school. And I just sort of realized, oh, I know about chords and these notes. I can sort of like translate things I learned on piano to this. And so I taught myself some guitar, and then around when I was like at the end of middle school, like when I was maybe 14 or so, I just found myself gravitating to the sound of the bass on recordings. Mostly like electric bass at that point, like, whatever alternative rock records I was listening to in the mid to late 90s.
Yeah.
And so I started taking electric bass lessons when I got to high school, kind of like right at the start. And then after a couple of years of that, I picked up an upright and started learning that. So it's kind of a gradual evolution.
gravitated your taste and desire toward the more of playing jazz than anything else?
It was really because my first electric bass teacher when I got to high school, he was actually the band director at the high school. His name was Doug Bar. He's still alive. His name is Doug Barber. He's a trumpet player, but he also played electric bass, and he's a very nice guy and a great musician. And so he was my first teacher, and he was. I mean, he's a trumpet player who's hugely into jazz. So my lessons with him, he sort of taught me electric bass, sort of mostly through the lens of jazz. Like he taught me, after we learned the basics, he started showing me records like Kind of Blue and Blue Train, and he was really into Mingus. He showed me a lot of Mingus. So he sort of was like my first teacher, and he sort of started showing me those records, which had a big influence on me. And yeah, that was sort of like how I got into it. And he encouraged me to play in the jazz band, so I started playing big band charts and listening to some big band music, and just sort of went from there.
That's great. Yeah, it's incredible. I have a similar path, I think, in that it's amazing how a teacher at that age can only not only inform you as a player, but open up your mind as a listener too, and can really kind of change the direction maybe of the path that you're going on by the music that they introduce you to. I had a similar thing happen with a teacher around that same age.
Yeah, it's true. And it can be hugely influential. And actually, I have a funny memory that this is talking about Doug Barber is reminding me of. He used to burn. This is like in the era of burning CDs.
Oh yeah.
So he used to burn me CDs once in a while of like just a bunch of different like kind of mixed CDs of different jazz that he was checking out. And on one of the CDs he gave me, he brought me into his office and he played me this one track, and I found out like now that I know who it was, and I can't remember if he told me or if I had to look it up, but it was a track from I don't know what record, but it was Don Byron, Bill Frisell, Joey Barron, and Kermit Driscoll, and they were playing No Mo, the Sonny Rollins tune.
Yeah.
And he was like, I want to know what you think of this. And like, he played it for me. And this is like sort of in the beginning of my relationship with, jazz and all that. So I just like, it was so weird to me at that point. Like, I just like, I kind of hated it. I was like, what are they doing? Like, there was like no like steady groove. They were just like playing all over the place. And he was like, I want you to keep the CD and listen to it like in a couple of years. And I did. And I listened to it after like my first or second year at college when I was studying jazz at the new school. And I was like, yeah, this is fucking amazing. This is like the best, it's so funny. Like, he knew. He was like, you're going to be into this someday, but it might be over your head right now.
Yeah. I think the first time, and I now just absolutely love everything that has Bill Frisell's name on it. But I think when I first heard it, I don't think I was musically mature to understand what was going on with it and the people that he collaborated with. But my goodness, there's just so much greatness that happens anytime he's on a project.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to speak with Victor Krauss on here about playing some of those Bill Frisell albums, and it's just it's just magical, some of the stuff that Bill has done. That album specifically I think the one, I can't remember the album that you're talking about, but I do remember that track.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're the second person in 2 days that I've talked with that was a student at the New School. I spoke with Larry Golding yesterday, and
Oh, cool.
we were talking about the New School, and I went to Belmont in Nashville years ago, which it's very different, but I think similar in a lot of ways. I'm curious what your experience was like being at a music school. For me, the classes were great, but the connections and the collaborations ultimately for me was the best part of my college experience.
Yeah, that's definitely true for me as well. Yeah, I still play with some people that I went to the new school with that I met there. Um, but the I did learn a lot from the classes as well. But at least I think the new school has changed a lot since I went there. I mean, I was there in 2002, 2006. And I'm not as I don't really know what's going on there, but when I was there, it was the overall the prevailing feeling of the place was kind of like a looseness. No one was really like closely keeping track of like what you were doing, like what classes you needed to take. I mean, you had advisors and stuff, but like you could kind of once you completed the required classes, you could really just kind of you know take whatever other classes you wanted to and do what you wanted to, and honestly pretty easy requirements in terms of what they wanted you to do. So it was really up to the individual to figure out what they wanted to learn, how they could get to that, who to study with. And that was good for me. I don't think it's good for everybody, but I sort of made the most of it when I was there and learned a lot from some classes and learned a lot from some amazing teachers. But yeah, I would say the most I got out of it was getting my butt kicked by my peers and playing with everybody and meeting people and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's same thing for me. Yeah, I did some summer music festivals as well in high school and just after graduating from high school, and just feeling there's something about being around people that are either your age or close in age to you that are better than you. There's something that lights a fire under you. I think that really makes you want to be better. It's great to be. I think there's something wonderful about being with people that are better than you of all ages. But there's, at least for me, there was a little bit of a competitive spirit that I had when it was people that were my peers. You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah. Is that did you meet Becca at the new school?
I did. Yeah, I met Becca. Becca and I are the same age basically, but she I think didn't come to the new school until my second year. Um, but I met her sometime during my second year there. Um, and yeah, we became friends and played a bunch. And yeah, I joined her band when she started it, sort of
Yeah.
at the end of her time at the new school.
So I have now had you and Jordan and Becca on the podcast. So the trio is now complete.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Such a fan of you all and just what you've done as individual musicians, but also collectively as that band. And I'd just be curious to hear what your perspective is on just getting to play in that ensemble, and maybe what you've brought musically to the group, but maybe also what you've taken away musically from getting to collaborate with those other musicians.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's a big question because I've been playing with Becca for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I have been playing with her for more than 20 years, but her band I think started in I think we started playing with her band in 2006, so we're coming up on like the 20th anniversary of her band, I
Wow.
guess. Um, but yeah, so when she started her band, I don't know how familiar you are with the early years of her band, but like the T by C era,
Yes.
um, it was like a whole, that was like a little bit of a different thing than it sort of turned into.
Hmm.
It was originally with my good friend Tommy Crane on the drums, he's a still good friend of mine, and he lives in Montreal now, so we don't get to play that much, but we still get to play occasionally. He's an amazing drummer, and this guy Colin Killalay, who was in Becca's band for a while, who's an amazing saxophone player and guitarist and singer. And then there's Liam Robinson, who he's one of the most unique musicians I've ever met. Accordion, piano, banjo, singer, and he's actually the musical director at Hadestown, which is how I originally got in there subbing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, Um, and so that, and then me and Becca, that was like the first iteration of her band, and it was great, but then sort of kind of fell apart in a way. Like Tommy left and Colin left, and so for a while, her band was just me, Becca, and me and Liam Robinson, and that sort of was like the start of something for me that was very special because I started singing in her band at that point because Colin was a singer and he Becca had all this music with 3-part vocal harmonies and Colin left, and so I was kind of like, oh, I've been singing kind of my whole life, but not very like publicly. But I was like, oh, maybe I could try, to cover Colin's parts. And so Becca and I worked pretty hard at learning some stuff, and then so we did a lot of trio gigs, and we sort of developed a sound with our voices and with our playing without, no drums or anything. Um, and and we were kind of just a tight little drumless trio for a while, and then we I don't remember if I recommended Jordan to Becca or what happened with that, but somehow Jordan and Becca met, and he was sort of this perfect addition. I knew him already from playing some more sort of jazz gigs with him, and he's amazing. So, and then once we started playing with Jordan, it was kind of like we had this really solid band, and it was an experience that is kind of rare in it's I don't know. It felt very rare in like the jazz world context, which even though Becca's music is not jazz, she sort of like has always been associated with that world because of her collaborators and stuff. But in the jazz world, it's kind of rare to have a band like that where there's no written charts. You just like you learn the music by ear. It's like that band. Everyone has their thing in that band, and it's really hard to like get a sub or replace somebody. So it was a really special experience for me, learning music like that and performing music like that. And it's something that I still try to do. Like I love to have bands. Like I don't really lead any band like a solo project, but I do have a collaborative trio with two friends of mine, and I like that having a band ethos of like, okay, this is the band, and like this is a special group of people. That's why we're a band, and I like that still.
Would you rather be in a band project than maybe playing with 4 or 5 different groups on a rotating basis? A lot of musicians, I hear it kind of go either direction. Where do you sit on that?
This is going to be sort of a cop out answer, but I really like both. I think I want both because they both satisfy different things for me. I like sort of, being hired for a situation and coming in and, working on nailing some hard music or whatever, even if it's not like a band that I play in. But I also like developing music, more slowly over time, with like a band vibe. I like them both, and I've done a lot of them both at this point, and
Yeah.
I think if I did all one and not the other, like if I was just on tour with one band for like then that was all I did. Um, I mean that would be yeah. I don't think I would enjoy that very much.
Yeah, I
But
think it could be a bit maddening at times just playing the same set.
yeah,
Even if you played a varied set of tunes every night, having a little bit of variety with who you're getting to collaborate with is kind of nice.
yeah. But then the same by the same token, if I only was a hired gun and I never had like a sort of grounded group that I could sort of go to, because you can definitely go deeper with the music if it's like a band. You can get to places that you can't get to if you're just in like a hired gun situation. So I really like doing both of those things.
Yeah. Was there any learning curve for you for playing bass and singing at the same time? I've talked with a lot of bass players on here who sing, and myself being one of them. That you know, at least for me, it's like not focusing on one more than the other is typically where it would reside. And I've done a lot of lead singing, not a lot of harmony singing, background singing as well, but a lot of lead singing. And
Hmm.
to play solidly on the bass while being musically interesting as a phrasing wise as a singer sometimes can be a little bit of a tightrope trying to figure out how to navigate both of those simultaneously.
Yeah, I mean, there was certainly a learning curve, a big one, I would say. But it's the kind of thing that, like, once you get going, it's almost a little addictive. You're like, wow, I can like do that crazy thing at the same time, and it's like, well, you kind of want to do more of it. I will say I've never had to be particularly interesting with my phrasing as a singer because I've never really done any lead singing. But I've had to sort of nail a lot of pretty difficult, intricate vocal parts while playing solid bass lines. And yeah, it's something I really love to do, and it certainly made me a better musician overall, I think. Um, I really like one of the things I do when I practice is I try and what's the way to put it? Like I don't know, I like to challenge my brain to sort of multitask, not multitask, but like do two things at the same time. Like I'll put a metronome on and I'll play a steady rhythm on my bass while I click another rhythm on my tongue. Like so, there's these two layers that I have to keep going. It's almost like it's like playing singing kind of. But you have to like sort of practice focusing on, like you said, like not one of them too much. Like you have to be aware of both of them, but not overly aware of either of them.
Yeah, that's it. That's the wonderful challenge of it. At least for me, I've always enjoyed that part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've taught drum. I started out as a drummer and percussionist, then kind of moved over, became a bass player uh, eventually, but have taught a lot of bass and drum students over the years. And I always encourage both instrumentalists to listen to listen to bass players or drummers that are also singers, because I think there's a certain amount of discipline involved in it, and they typically don't play anything, don't play parts that may not be necessary to the song. If there's a vocal element involved as well, they really play the parts that matter.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, I remember that you were also singing with that group, and it was pretty cool hearing a fellow bass player who's in a vocal situation. It's always good.
Yeah, and Becca, it was kind of funny because like over time, she was just like, "Oh, okay, Chris can sing," and like, but I've never been like really trained as a singer outside of just singing in choirs. But like the parts that she was writing for us just got more and more ambitious over time, and so I feel like every record that she would, every new group of songs that she would present to us, she's like, "And this is your vocal part," and I'd be like, "All right, like I guess I'm gonna have to, up my game a little bit." But that was good for me. Like, it gave me something to work on, and I had to figure out. I never took. It probably would have been a good idea to take some vocal lessons at some point, but Instead, I chose the path of just like, okay, how can I like problem solve this on my own and figure out how to do this in a way that feels good and right to me.
Yeah. Is the group, are you guys still playing many gigs together?
Um, at this point, not many gigs, but some. We so Becca released a beautiful record, Maple to Paper, last year, and it's a solo record with no band. Um, and but she wrote the tunes. They're very much like, Are you have you heard that record?
I
Maybe.
I I have actually. Yeah.
Okay.
She and I talked about it when she was on here because
Yeah.
yeah, we both had lost a parent
Oh
within
yeah.
the past few years, and we had a conversation about it. Yeah, it's it's a really strong album, and I think she captures so much of the emotion around just loss and coping with it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
kind of, yeah, definitely. It can be a problem sometimes playing in a band where you like are almost breaking down in tears every time you play certain
Yeah.
songs. But Becca has a way about inspiring that. But so yeah, so they're very much like more sort of songy songs than some of her past stuff, like that's more sort of highly arranged for a band or whatever. But we do play those songs as a trio. Like we can sort of slip in and just sort of support her, instead of having these like really complex arrangements. So we've done a couple of tours like that, um, and we did a short run in September. That was the last time we played. But we've got a couple of nights that we're gonna do in LA in April. I think that's the next thing. Um, but Becca's really busy. She's got two kids and she's got all this other stuff going on in her career. But I think that she wants to keep it going on some level. We still technically a band, and hopefully it'll be more active in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you, as we talked earlier about um, playing with Jordan. I know just the immense number of great drummers that you get to play with, and I talk a lot on here with drummers and bass players just about that rhythm section relationship and how crucial it is for the success or failure of any ensemble. And I'd
Sure.
be curious if you had to quantify or kind of put together a list of your requirements of a drummer you're working with. What are some of the things that you look for in someone that you're holding down the rhythm section with?
Hmm. Um, that's a big question that I've thought a lot about in my life.
Yeah.
But it's something that's hard to put into words because there's not like one particular flavor of drummer that I would say I necessarily like playing with more than others, but there definitely are different, flavors out there. Um, and also it kind of depends on the music that I'm playing. Like if I'm playing swing, like a swing beat, I like to play with drummers that have like a what you might call a wider beat. Um, but if I'm playing more rock or pop or folk, I kind of like a more settled, like a focused pocket. So yeah, I don't know if I could do like a one, like because I like playing all sorts of different styles and also with all sorts of different people. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've heard bass players or drummers talk about that, as you're talking about playing swing versus playing, call it backbeat, whatever, rock
sure,
pop, kind of
yeah,
a kind of a top down mentality to playing swing, and then like a bottom up with,
hmm,
kick drum up. So yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I think just that trust factor of just the learning to communicate with each other quickly, and just with a maybe communicate just with maybe even not even looking at each other, just getting inside of what someone's time is yeah, there's so much. I mean, we could sit here and talk for an hour just about that relationship alone, right? There's so much involved in it.
Yeah, I mean, trust is a yeah. That's I think with any with drummers, with any musician, but especially with drummers, yeah, trust is a thing. And I find that there are definitely certain drummers like obviously like the first thing I notice about a drummer is their time feel like and how it fits with mine specifically because no one is perfect obviously but people mesh with each other. Some people mesh with other people more than better than others. um, and but even if playing with a drummer doesn't come naturally to me right away, like if our beats are kind of in conflict, once we get to, like you were saying, once you get to know each other, it can be a whole vibe. It can be, you have a special thing if you can, if you can manage to communicate that with each other. Um, but also, one important thing for me is an awareness of not just volume, but also frequency, the frequencies that you're covering as a drummer.
Yeah.
That's an important one for me. Like, you can tell pretty quickly drummers that are more aware of that, like based on what cymbal they would choose to play in a certain part of a song, or what cymbal or what drums they would use to accompany one soloist versus another in more of a jazz context. Just like because drum set can cover so many, like all the frequencies basically. And if I'm playing a bass solo and someone's like, I don't know, riding their bass drum or their floor tom or something, I'm like, all right, well, this is a problem.
Yeah.
Well, stuff like that,
I agree completely. And I talk to a lot of drummers on here about, just like knowing that balance of being a driver and being a passenger.
Yeah, there's something that I think about a lot in terms of like time and rhythm and time feel within bands and amongst between people. Like, I feel like there are some drummers and other musicians too. There are some drummers that sort of like feel like it's all on them to establish the time feel, like the overall time feel. And so they'll just kind of like plow through with their time feel. And then there are some people, drummers and other musicians, that sort of have this awareness of like, okay, I'm playing with others, and we all have these different feels going on. But if we listen, we can sort of hear where our feels are meeting, and I can like hear that and support where that is. This is very abstract. I'm sorry. I don't know if this is making any sense.
No, it absolutely makes sense. No, I completely, and it does get a little bit inside baseball. A lot of my listeners are casual music listeners, but I think I hear from a lot of people that love to understand kind of this inside relationship of maybe some of the like unspoken negotiation that may happen on the bandstand about things around time and tempo and understanding whose responsibility it is or how that responsibility may move around the ensemble depending on what's going on. You play with like we were talking about, you play with a lot of different ensembles, and you have been for a long time. And you know, a lot of incredible composers, writers of their own music. And is it a conscious decision on your part, or something you think about going into, whatever, on, let's say, any ensemble that you go into, about um, coming in and honoring their music, honoring their voice, while still maintaining your voice and your identity as who you are as a player? Is there any of that, like, internal negotiation that you think about, or how does some of that work?
um, I definitely am someone who approaches that with the mentality of like, I'm my first priority is to try to play this person's music like as perfectly as I can, as they have it written or arranged or whatever. Like that's my first priority, and then after that is taken care of. If they're like, yeah, this part you don't have to play that for this part, or it can be more open or whatever, or you just sort of like people I've been playing with a long time, I sort of know like, okay, I think if I want to open this part up a little bit here, that'll be cool. Um, but I definitely err on the side of like not imposing myself on things too much. Partially because I don't know, it's just part of my personality. I'm comfortable being in the background and not like forcing myself on people. But also, yeah, I don't know. There's a quote that I heard a long time ago that I heard attributed to Pablo Picasso. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's something that a paraphrase of the quote is like, if you shouldn't try and like paint a circle that shows your personality. You should try and paint a perfect circle, and then your personality will inevitably come through in the circle that you paint.
Oh, it's nice. Yeah.
And so that's sort of like I keep that in mind a lot actually. And also just like my constant mantra is serve the music. So, I'm not trying to like serve myself by making it too much about how I want it to sound. I'm trying to serve a lot, it can mean different things at different times, but a lot of the time it can mean like, okay, I want to help this person bring this piece to life in the way that they wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that's a testament to, the incredible career you've had thus far, and, just the list of musicians that want to work with you. And you're obviously a team player and are serving the ensemble and serving the music, first and foremost. And, look, I'm sure we've both worked with our share of people over the years that want to show you everything that they know how to do. The song be damned, right? If it
Yeah.
happens or not, right?
Yeah, I mean that is, that, and I've grown to sort of I don't know about if I could say I understand that personality type more now, but I've grown to sort of appreciate, that everyone is different in that way. Um, and if there weren't people that wanted to show everyone what they could do, then there wouldn't be anyone to hire me to play and support them.
It's a
So
wonderful way to look at it.
yeah.
That's a great way to look at it. Yeah. Before we go, I'm just curious what the next period in the year looks for you, other than playing the Hadestown on a consistent basis. What else do you have coming up?
Um, well, I just did a really fun recording session with the great Anna Weber. I don't know if you're familiar with her music at all.
I don't know if I am, actually.
She's a composer and primarily a tenor sax player, but also an amazing flute player. And I just did a non-net recording with her at the end of January. And hopefully that record will come out in the fall, and we'll get to do a release show or something.
Oh, nice.
Um, and I play a lot with this saxophonist Caroline Davis.
Yeah.
I've got some stuff with her coming up in May on the West Coast. Let's see, what else? I wasn't prepared. Yeah, that's it. That's all that's coming to mind right now. I'm playing with Becca, like I was saying, Becca Stevens in LA on April 24th and 25th. And a lot of local gigs around town, just like here and there. I have to be the Broadway thing. The rule is you have to be there 50% of the gigs to keep your job. So I have a decent amount of leeway to sort of take off and play gigs around town that I want to do.
It's nice.
Yeah.
50% of each week? Is that it? Is that how it works?
No, they do it by quarter. So
Oh, okay.
you can be there 2 shows one week, 6 shows the next week, that kind of thing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's fairly flexible. Which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I can think of at the moment.
Well, that's great. Well, I'm excited that you get to have some consistent, work, but you also get to go out and collaborate with some different players and, keep that spark going, because I know that it's important to be
Yeah,
able to do that. So yeah, that's awesome.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Chris, it's been a pleasure talking with you, man. I've been such a fan of yours, and it's been good to just kind of get inside your mind and hear some of your wisdom and your perspective on some of this, man. You have a lot of wonderful thoughts around just being a musician. So thanks for being here, and best of luck to you.
That's very kind, man. I appreciate it, and it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please follow or subscribe to the Bandwich Tapes wherever you listen, and consider leaving a rating or review. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.